Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Welcome. My name is Mauricio, aka the Big Eared Bandit. And a few weeks ago, I saw a movie called The Long Walk, and I had some interesting thoughts that I wanted to share with all of you and make a video. For those of you that don't know, The Long Walk is a movie based on a Stephen King story, based on 50 teenagers that embark on a competition to see who can walk the longest, and at the end one of them wins a prize. I think that's all I can say without spoiling the movie. And I guess to cut right to the chase, I thought the movie was very good. I enjoyed it quite a lot. I think if I was in that situation, I'd probably get like 49 out of 50. I think the most I've walked in the last year was during WrestleMania weekend. I was clubbing with Braun Breaker and Liv Morgan, and I walked from the Fontainebleau all the way back to Planet Hollywood, and that was all right. But it was also like a nice cool night, and there was no sun. I think realistically I'd get chafed pretty quickly, and I also have flat feet, which would probably take me out of the running pretty quickly. But anyways, yeah, it was a good movie. I guess before I get started, I'm thinking of turning this into a series. Just, you know, this title, right? A Christ follower's thoughts on, you know, insert movie. So yeah, we did one on Him. Go check out the Him video. I'm doing one on The Long Walk. And then next time there is like a movie that sort of sparks my thoughts and my interests as a Christian, I'll probably do that. I don't think I'll do one on every movie, because not all of them do. But I do like to think biblically about everything I consume. And I think some of the movies that I watch have some very good stuff to say. So yeah, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Analytics tell me that like 90% of you guys aren't, so please like and subscribe. Doesn't cost you a thing, except more attention sometimes. Anyways, let's get into it. Alright, so it's been quite the year for Stephen King stories in film. The year started with The Monkey, which I liked. I didn't love. I liked it. I got to see it twice, actually. I saw an early screening of it like way over a year before it came out. Actually, yeah, around that time. And I liked it then. Had some notes. Shared the notes. Saw the final cut in January. It was alright. They made some tweaks. Nothing amazing. Then Life of Chuck came out a few months ago in the summer. And that was really good. That was one of my favorite movies of the year. Probably top 3. I was really lucky, actually. I got to sit in on a Q&A with Tom Hiddleston, Mark Hamill, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and director Mike Flanagan. It's really cool. 10 out of 10 movie. I'm really looking forward to rewatching it as soon as I can when it's on streaming somewhere. This video has nothing to do with him, but if you aren't familiar with Mike Flanagan, please get familiar with him. He doesn't miss. He directed Life of Chuck, Dr. Sleep. He wrote the upcoming Clayface movie for the DCU. He's a producer on Shelby Oaks, which is coming out later this month, which I already have seen, or may not have seen. Actually, I'm not going to say anything. Mike Flanagan's very good at what he does, and I think if you're into the movie industry in any sort of capacity, you should get familiar with him, because I think he's one of the best out there right now. And then lastly, this takes us into The Long Walk, which we're talking about today. So yeah, big year for Stephen King. Big fan. Have always been a big fan. Big Stephen King enjoyer. And this was another bop in the Stephen King universe. So let's get into it. All right, as I mentioned at the top, I really like the movie. It's got a really good cast. It's got Mark Hamill, Cooper Hoffman, who most of you guys know as Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. But he's done some other work already. He's done Licorice Pizza, and can't quite think of another movie, but he's got some movies under his belt. Ben Wang, who we saw in Karate Kid Legends. And we also have breakout star David Johnson, who most of you guys remember from Alien Romulus last year. For those who celebrate, we also have Judy Greer. I know we got a lot of Judy Greer fans out there. I have plenty of good stuff to say about this movie, so I'm going to start off with some critiques, because I really don't have a lot. My I guess my biggest and only critique is I thought the dialogue was a little weak in the beginning. I think in the first 30 to 40 minutes of the movie, it's a little bit rough. I think that mostly comes from the lack of chemistry between the characters. You know, they're all meeting each other for the first time. And yeah, I think the dialogue suffers a little bit from that. You know, we're told that all these boys are, you know, in their late teens. So we're talking 18, 19. I think some of them might even be under 18 in the movie. And they're like painfully written as like CW characters most of the time. They're just like overtly mean to each other. The humor is like really crude, but it doesn't land. Like the jokes aren't funny. It's just like teenage boys making teenage jokes that don't land. And you know, that's accurate. That is how teenage boys behave. But I think the way that it's written is maybe not super accurate to, I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm an unk now. I'm 27, but you know, I serve a lot in the high school ministry, and I used to work, you know, at a school, so I'm around young people a lot, and the dialogue didn't remind me of like teenage boys. It just reminded me of, like I said, like a CW show. But anyways, that's not really an issue. I think as the movie continues moving forward and the characters sort of get to know each other, the chemistry really develops quickly, and the dialogue that was like a problem at the beginning doesn't really continue to be a problem. So that's really my only critique of the movie. So let's get into the good stuff. As I mentioned, I'm a big Stephen King fan, and I really appreciated there were a few Easter eggs. I'm sure I missed a few, but I know for sure there was like an homage to Cujo. We see like a dog that's very Cujo-like during the long walk. We see the cat from Pet Sematary during the long walk. I'm sure like she's in there somewhere, but I don't have like a specific reference. But because of where the movie like takes place in terms of like universe and timeline, I'm sure there was like an homage to Christine, which is a movie that I also really enjoyed growing up. So yeah, I'd be curious to see like what other Easter eggs I missed. So if you know of any, like put it in the comment section. I was also just there this past summer, and it definitely has this vibe. But shout out to South Dakota, which is where I thought the movie took place. Because I could have swore that Garrity, the main character, said he was from South Dakota. And then we know that the long walk this year, I don't know if it changes year to year, but at least this year, they mentioned that it's in his home state, because they keep kind of like joking with him that he has home field advantage. But then I Googled it, and it said that the movie takes place in Maine, like everything that Stephen King writes, which like makes sense, of course. I think the book definitely takes place there, but the internet was also telling me that the movie takes place there, which that I'm not so sure about. I could have swore they mentioned South Dakota, because it also felt like South Dakota. It felt like those South Dakota roads. But anyways, that just kind of goes to talk about how much they nailed the setting of it. The movie is really brutal, like in terms of like violence. It doesn't hold back, which I like. I think when you're making a movie that's sort of this bleak in terms of theme, you have to, right? Because this movie takes place in a like dystopian, militant, totalitarian regime, and I think it's very Hunger Games style, right? So if you're gonna tell a story in this sort of setting, you have to commit to it, right? Like you have to make it feel like, yeah, we're in a dystopia. And the deaths in this movie like are really brutal. They don't like really hold back. They don't do a ton of cutaways. Like you see a lot of the deaths, and it's, you know, it's insane. It's brutal because they're teenage boys, you know, being murdered. So yeah, I mean, of course I don't like the violence itself, but I like that they committed to the universe that this movie takes place in, right? I think if this is like a PG-13 movie, like it just doesn't land. A lot of the through lines don't hit. The heartbreak doesn't hit. The trauma that the kids go through during the long walk doesn't land. So I'm really glad that they committed to the sort of like intensity of the movie. The cast was also really good. I really enjoyed the cast. That's something else that was a standout for me. You really fall in love with you know, the 50 boys that are running in the long walk. You even sympathize with those who are supposed to be antagonizers, because the movie does a really good job of reminding us that they're just kids, right? Like they're kids placed in a circumstance that no kid should ever be in. So when they behave maliciously, although you might dislike them for a bit for that, because the protagonist also disliked them, you learn to like pity them as the walk goes on, and remember that like they're not like bad people. They're just like kids in insane circumstances, right? They kind of remind you of like Zuko in The Last Airbender, right? Like he was just a kid that was like placed in insane circumstances that made him behave maliciously. Now, of course, it's not to excuse the stuff that they do in the movie. Some of these like antagonizers, like they definitely make mistakes, right? Like I'm not trying to say that what they did wasn't bad. The mistakes are there, but you like learn to sympathize with the fact that like, you know, if you were 18 and you were there, you might have done the same thing, right? Like we learned that Barkovich, number 5, he's not actually a sociopath like the movie kind of paints him to be in the beginning. He's just like a super socially awkward kid that got someone killed and then had to live with that for the remainder of the walk until he couldn't anymore, and he like asks for forgiveness, and it's really beautiful. You know, the kids kind of forgive him to the best of their ability, right? You learn that Stebbins, number 38, that he isn't some devoid of emotion guy willing to do whatever it takes to win the race, or the walk I should say, but instead he's just like this really desperate, abandoned son looking to get the respect and the attention of his father, who also happens to be the real antagonist of the movie, right? Mark Hamill, who's the general. And it's like, you know, which kid wouldn't do that? Which like abandoned kid who wants attention from his dad wouldn't behave the way that he behaves in order to get what he thinks he wants from his father figure? So in general, they really nailed the character soup of this movie. In a movie with this many characters, it's really easy to like mess that up. Even if you mess up one character, it kind of ruins the whole movie. But all of like the guys in this movie are like really awesome. They're easy to root for, and even the ones that you don't like, you like learn to sympathize with them. So really good job there for the movie. You know, it's a big cast. You know, they got 50 guys doing the walk, and the movie shows us at least 10 of them. Like we get to know at least 10 of them, maybe more. So yeah, they nailed it. Judy Greer is also really good. Her relationship with Cooper Hoffman is like a really strong bond that really adds the heart behind our protagonist's like intentions. Like I think you really you just really, you know, you root for him because you see how wholesome that relationship is and how much it means to him, how much it means to her. So it really makes it easy for you to buy in to the concept of the long walk, right? Like this could have been a movie where the long walk is happening and you're kind of watching the movie and you're like, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? Like, why is anyone doing this, right? But, you know, the movie focusing on Judy Greer and Cooper Hoffman is like a really like, come on, you can do it. It makes you want to really buy in to the walk because you just root for them so much. David Johnson is a standout in this movie. A lot of people are sort of calling are calling this his like breakout. And I thought he was really good. I don't want to discredit that. I did think he was really good. I personally liked him better in Alien Romulus. I thought his performance was a little stronger there. That's not to say that he was bad in this movie. I thought he was just as good. But I think for whatever reason, like, he just impressed me more with his range in Alien Romulus. Just my opinion. Last few things that I really liked about it is the movie is shot on location in Manitoba, and it freaking rips, man. Last year I took a drive from Indianapolis to Chicago, and the movie had that same exact feel, that sort of transition that I experienced during that drive, right? You go from like these Midwestern plains, these Midwestern roads, into like this like very blue collar industrial like Art Deco vibe as you like enter Chicago. And the movie had the same vibe, right? You start in these like desolate roads, you go through these small towns, and then it ends in this like steel city that feels like just really good. So yeah, I love that they shot on location. It really, really, really had like an awesome aesthetic, and it made for some good shots. It made for some good immersion. And then of course, as we sort of start to transition into my thoughts as a believer, I love the sacrifice at the end. Of course, the movie ends with Garrity giving up his life for Peter to win the long walk, and it's very biblical. It immediately reminded me of John 15:13. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friend, right? Like, pretty straightforward. You get to see that throughout the walk. These guys who are meant to be enemies are pitted against each other. You know, they, as the meme goes, it's the friends that we make along the way, right? The real journey, the real adventure was the friends we made along the way. That was true for Garrity, and he realized that Peter is, McBride's. He's a better man than I am, and he has forgiveness, and he has a pure heart, and I'm going to give up my life for him because he's gonna be the man that I want to be if I were to ever, complete the long walk. So, yeah. I mean, and that kind of summarizes as to why I like the movie so much. As we continue to talk about the movie, I actually want to focus on some more biblical themes. So I'm going to transition into my thoughts as a believer. So, yeah, I'm going to talk about that next. All right, so like I explained at the top in the beginning of this video, the whole concept of this film is, you compete against your fellow men and win everything you ever wanted for you, for your family. You get to escape the world that you were born into, right? Now, of course, this is a lie, right? It's a monkey paw scenario. It's a genie in a bottle moment. It's a lie from the enemy disguised as something good, true, and righteous, when in reality it's not. We know that the winner of this event is awarded everything they thought they wanted, but it comes at the cost of their humanity. Because throughout the journey, they have to see 49 other kids die and your own health deteriorate before achieving this reward. It's It's the world at the cost of your innocence. And if you think about it, right, like you're not just seeing 49 other people die, right? These are all like young men in their teens who have very similar sort of upbringings or grew up in similar environments, whatever the case might be. You could argue that every time you watch, if you're on the long walk, every time, we'll just use, Garrity and McBride's as the example, McBride's, because they're the ones that are the final two. Every time they see someone else die on the long walk, they almost see a version of themselves dying, right? I remember the first time in my sort of youth that I saw a headline of someone dying that was my age, my same age. That was like one of the first times in my life that I remember like almost recognizing or becoming aware of like mortality, like the futility of life, like how quickly things can end. Because it was like, wow, I was born in 1998, and I was like kind of freaked out reading a headline of someone dying from 1998, because I'm like, that shouldn't feel possible. Like, I was born there. How is it possible that someone that was born the same year as I was is no longer with us? And these kids on the long walk have to put up with that every time someone else dies. Like, dang, that could have been me. That's literally me, Ryan Gosling meme. That's literally me that just died. So, yeah, I mean, the question that I think has really come to my head biblically based off this movie is it worth the cost of your life to achieve this reward? And it immediately brought me to Matthew 16:26, when Jesus says, "And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul?" Now, of course, the answer is no. Jesus is being rhetorical here. He's asking the disciples this rhetorically. And just to be clear, he's, the context of this in scripture is he's asking this out of the disciples in regards to their salvation, right? Jesus is trying to tell them of the things that are about to happen. He's going to, go to the cross and die, and that the disciples, if they want to follow Jesus, are going to have to go through that same exact journey. And, he's giving them the option. He's like, hey, you can do this and spend eternity with me, or like if you want to like pursue your own dreams, you can do that, but it'll cost you your soul. It'll cost you eternal life. Now that, of course, doesn't match up one for one with the movie, but I think in the context of the film, the verse fits in pretty solid, right? If we think about it, the prize at the end of the long walk represents gaining the whole world, And losing your own soul is represented by the act of engaging in the long walk, because the journey itself will end in death no matter what, either in a literal death or the death of your soul. Because as we see, everyone that makes it farther loses their innocence until you're sort of like a husk of who you were when you started the race. And you even see that in the character McRise, who is supposed to be this, right? Gary picks him because he thinks that he will show forgiveness. But instead, McRise, the person he becomes at the end of the race, at the end of the walk, is a different person, right? We realize that the original McRise died as well. He died on that walk because he doesn't choose forgiveness at the end. He ends up doing what Garrity originally wanted to do, which was wishing for the carbine rifle and shooting the general, right? So we see that it wasn't 49 kids that died on the long walk. It was actually 50, because we see the death of McRice's morality on the walk as well as the movie ends. So yeah, I think the verse fits really, really well, and sort of leads me into an important theme that I think the movie's trying to make, or at least a theme that I sort of put together. So I guess stick with me here, okay? So just like in the movie, we as a society all sign up to walk, right? Hoping that one day all our hard work will pay off into this big reward. Now the truth is that most of us, it'll cost us our life to achieve that goal, and very few of us will actually ever get there. And the lucky few that do get there, they're going to look back and they're going to see the miles of wrath they left behind in their wake, and not be able to change the years that they wasted chasing that dream rather than enjoying stuff that actually matters in life, right? Like your relationship with the Lord, your love with a spouse, memories with children, laughter with friends, right? All these sort of things that really encapsulate what life really is about. As a believer, me, myself, right? Life is about bringing glory to God, bringing Lord to Christ, doing everything to glorify Him. So if at any point I ever forsake that to pursue something else, that will result in the loss of my soul, right? I will have abandoned what I was created for something that is fleeting and will lead to nothing at the end, right? I'm gonna die one day, and whatever I achieved will be worth nothing if I didn't glorify God during my journey, right? That's sort of my, I guess, long walk. If I were to do it wrong, right? You get what I'm saying. So I think this movie is actually critiquing something very important in American culture that the enemy has been hiding under the guise of American Christianity for very, very long. I want to talk to you about the American dream. So I was born in Guatemala. I came to the United States with my single mother in 2006 at the age of 8. I studied very hard, or at least tried to. I was very involved, extracurriculars, sports, whatever, you name it. I, was trying everything I could to stay busy in this country, while my mom worked even harder than anything that I was doing, and we went to church on the weekends, and then we both went back to our things during the weekdays. For me, it was school and other things. For her, it was work and a second job and, sort of these entrepreneur opportunities, because we were both trying to pursue the American dream, what we were sold as the American dream, which seems very wholesome, right? You hear it a lot. I think it's a big selling point in politics in this country. People want to sell you the American dream. And I'm not saying the American dream innately is a bad thing, and I should maybe define the American dream. I think it's a little bit different for everyone, but I think in the most vague, general sense, when you think of the American dream, you sort of think of working hard enough, right? Pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, working hard enough to eventually get to a point where you can be comfortable enough to enjoy the fruits of your labor here in this country. Which I think is very, very dangerous, and it's something that's become very, very twisted in the last, probably 20 years of this country. So that's sort of the premise of the American dream, and that's something that my mom and I, really, really, really went for when we first moved to this country. I was busy trying to find like a special talent that could eventually get us into like a home. I think that was my big thing. I always, growing up as a kid, I always wanted to be good enough, be talented enough to get to a place to buy my mom a home so that I could thank her for all the hard work and sacrifice that she had to put in, right? And for her, I can't speak directly for her. I'd have to maybe sit down and interview her one day. But I think for her, her dream, her passion was to make enough money to pull us out of the poverty, right? Because when you immigrate to this country, you start from zero, you do a new build and you start with nothing. And I think she wanted to get us to like a place where, it didn't feel like we were living in poverty. We tried everything to fulfill that. And we realized that as the years went on, right, my youth slipped away and my mom grew tired of working. She got older and, a lot of immigrant work, a lot of the work that she did was very physical, very labor intensive. And, she grew tired of doing that. And two things became alarmingly clear for us. Number one was that throughout the process, my childhood sort of became filled with memories of loneliness. And, that those are memories that I can't replace. I can't go back and change my childhood. That's just the childhood that I had. My mom worked very late, a lot of late nights. And, I had to spend a lot of days by myself, waking up, alone, walking myself to school, feeding myself, walking back home, taking care of myself because my mom was doing what she needed to do to provide for us, right? So that was one thing that became very clear to me. And then the second thing that became clear to me is that my mom realized that no amount of work could replace any amount of time spent with me, right? She missed out on years of spending time with me because she was working. And don't get me wrong, some work was a necessity, right? But most of the work was extra, trying to fulfill this American dream. Eventually, this led to me becoming a college dropout, to connect it to the movie. I stopped the long walk plenty of miles short before I even came close to winning the long walk. And my mom eventually decided to start working less, making less money, and not doing as many jobs and giving up on any sort of entrepreneurship ventures that she had, also falling short of her long walk. So, you could say that we both sort of quit pretty early on. And I guess if you were me or if you were my mom, I want to ask you a question. Does that disappoint you? When you think about that, does that make you sad? Does that disappoint you? Because, not to answer for you, but I think the answer is no. Neither my mom and I are disappointed. I think we made the right choice because we found something more important along the way, and that's our walk with the Lord, which gives us everything we ever needed, provides everything we ever could have asked for, that no amount of physical labor or money or fulfillment of dreams could have ever achieved. In 2019, I read a book that changed my life and the trajectory of my faith with the Lord. The book is called Radical by David Platt. I actually just finished rereading this again last year. And the book sort of, the premise of the book is, you taking your faith back from the American dream. And it sort of criticizes the way that American society has turned the American dream into the answer to our problems rather than the gospel itself. The book does a really good job of reminding us that, like, if you live in America, you're already in the top 1% wealthiest, healthiest, most successful people in the context of the entire globe, right? Just because I'm poor in America doesn't mean I'm poor in life. As a matter of fact, if you add context to it, my poverty here in America is 10, 20, 100 times the amount of the wealth that I would have in Guatemala. So why am I so eager to pursue more in this country when I'm already the richest I could be, especially in regards to my faith. I've already accomplished everything that I've ever wanted to, because I just like Matthew 16:26, I picked up my cross and I decided to follow Jesus. I've already gained my whole life, and I have a lot more work to do, right? Our journey as Christ followers doesn't stop when you pick up your cross, right? Like, that's just the first step. Now we have to continue our real long walk, the long walk that ends in a win, not the long walk that ends in death, you know? And I'm happily pursuing that right now, man. I tried really, really hard. You know, like I mentioned, I had a lot of pressure on me. I tried really, really hard to force my American dream, right? I eventually sort of came to this crossroads, and it's funny that I'm bringing this up in a video, because I had a really good conversation with a friend earlier this week, and I brought this up in that conversation as well. And it's not something that I had ever really processed until like this week. So, you know, I think it's just sort of the Lord putting this on my heart. But I remember coming to a crossroads where I felt like I could have continued pursuing my American dream and been successful at it, but it would have come at the cost of my faith and everything that was good that came from my faith. And the Lord made that very clear to me. I remember sort of having the option between the two in front of me, and knowing that, like, okay, I could pursue the dream and probably accomplish it, but I'll lose this other thing that's in front of me, which, you know, was my faith. And, you know, also I was dating my girlfriend, who's my wife now. And, you know, just, you know, it sort of felt like me choosing my faith also came with the potential of marriage, and the Lord providing a beautiful marriage, which is something that I always wanted. And, you know, fortunately, I think I made the right choice, right? I sacrificed my dream, but I gained, you know, this faith, this life that is full of, you know, proclaiming the gospel and walking with the Lord, and a beautiful marriage. And did I miss out on like what I wanted to do for like my career and my life, and, you know, the possibilities of, you know, buying that house that I talked about and all this other stuff? Sure. And like, did it hurt? Was it a sacrifice? Of course it was a sacrifice. And it wasn't easy. But when I look back at it now, I'm so grateful, right? Instead of looking back and seeing the hundreds of miles of, you know, of kids that failed the long walk, you know, to connect it to the movie, instead of seeing this toll of death, right, of sacrifices that I would have had to make, right? I would have had to sacrifice my relationship with the woman that became my wife. I would have had to sacrifice my time with my community, right? My commitment to the church, my time with the Lord, right? I would have maybe eventually got to the end of my long walk and achieved this genie in a bottle wish, but then looked back and saw that there was nothing left for me, you know, except for this reward. Or, you know, I was able to sacrifice that and earn everything that is good in life through my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So, yeah, I'm really glad I did. And I think that's something that the movie kind of put on my radar. And it's something that I was reminded of in my own life, right? In my own testimony. It's something that I was reminded of in this book. Check it out, Radical by David Platt. It's a good read, really simple, really short. And I think it's something that all of you watching should maybe consider, right? Are you compromising your faith for the pursuit of this American dream that you've been sold, which in reality isn't potentially honoring the Lord at all, but instead is, you know, speaking to your own selfish ambitiousness, is your ambitions, your own selfish ambitions as a human, right? So, something to think about. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time. Long Walk is very good. Go watch it if you can. I think it's still in theaters. It's October, so, you know, perfect time to watch a Stephen King movie. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.